Welcome to Interactive Storytelling. This time we will take a close-up on interaction. We talk a lot about interaction nowadays. It appears to be almost like the most important qualifying attribute of digital media. But what is interaction? How would you define it? And what is interactive? Interaction as a word has two parts, inter and action. It indicates that we are talking about an action that happens between two entities. And more than that, this action seems to be reciprocal as it binds each of the entities equally. The action of one entity influences the other and causes the other entity to respond with a new action. Chris Crawford summarizes this nicely in his definition. Interaction is a cyclic process between two or more active agents in which each agent alternately listens, thinks, and speaks. You can think of interaction as a conversation between people. First, you listen to what the other one is saying. Then you think about it and consider what you want to say, or if you want to say anything at all. Finally, you say out loud what you want to say. And then the process starts from the beginning, and it's somebody else's turn to have the active role. If this seems a bit limiting setup, you can abstract the phases to perceiving, decision-making, and acting. This isn't so far from computers, is it? Let's try to translate it into more computer-oriented terms. Input, computation, and output. Now, that's the core loop of almost any algorithm. How do we then value the interaction? How can we make the interaction better or more immersive? Crawford also gives us 3 degrees of interactivity. First, we can think interactivity from the perspective of speed. If you increase the speed of the interactive cycle, you increase the interactivity. If you have ever exchanged letters by using mail, and I'm talking about letters of the paper kind with envelopes, stamps, post boxes and delivery times measured in days, you have taken part in an interactive process with a low speed. Now compare that to communicating using electronic mail. Usually you take some time to write or read an email, but the delivery time is now almost instant. You can exchange much more information in a short time. What about then an instant messenger? The speed gets even higher and the possibility for interaction increases at the same time. This speed up resembles the speeding up of a film, where you start from showing individual frames one by one and end up having a continuous and animated motion. The same happens with interactivity. Faster turnaround means the communicating parties can react faster and see the results of their action faster. The second degree is depth, which is about the human-likeness of the interaction. The deeper the depth, the more human-like the interaction. Imagine that you call to the customer service of some company and you'd have to talk with a computer agent and try to explain your problem to it. Now, think of the same conversation with a human agent. It's not so hard to see the difference in interaction in these cases. When talking to a computer agent, you'd probably feel that you have a much smaller range of content within which you could effectively be able to converse. In the case of a human agent, you wouldn't feel so restricted, but would expect to get appropriate responses even if the conversation wanders off topic. The third degree of interactivity is choice, which has a twofold focus. Firstly, it's about the functional significance of the choices the interactor makes. This aspect is called agency. Basically, the question here is how well the interactor's choices satisfy the interactor's wants or desires. Secondly, choice is about the perceived completeness, which refers to the number of choices with respect to the possibilities the interactor can imagine. This aspect is called the interactive range. A narrow interactive range means that the interactor has only few choices to choose from. In extreme, the number of choices is exactly one, which could be the case when there's only a next button that just takes the interactor forward in the narrative. A wide interactive range means that the interactor can make a choice from a wide variety of options. Let's take a closer look of both the interactive range and agency. Think about an interactor who has to make a decision. The interactor chooses an action that is possible in a given situation. This action causes then a reaction. It could originate from another character, or it could be an event in the story world. The interactive range is the whole collection of actions that the interactor could take in that situation. This is what the platform and the story world together offer to the interactor, and there's nothing outside of this range that the interactor can do. All of these possible actions within the interactive range lead to a reaction. It could be, like in this case, that many of them lead to the same reaction. Here, the interactor has 6 choices, but only 2 outcomes. Agency refers to this. Having a wide interactive range doesn't necessarily mean that the interactor's agency is high as well. In this case, the top 3 choices lead to the same outcome, and the bottom 3 choices do the same as well. What initially looks like a multitude of choices actually doesn't offer as many unique responses. Let's take another example. Again, we have the initial situation. This time, there are only 3 possible choices, so the interactive range is smaller than in the previous example. But each of these actions leads to a unique reaction, which means that the agency is higher than in the previous example. We will come back to this topic later when we are looking at the interactor. To round up this discussion on interactivity, let's look at the types of interactivity as defined by Marie-Laure Ryan. This model is based on 2 axes that divide the area into 4 quadrants. The horizontal axis differentiates internal and external interactivity. In internal interactivity, the interactor projects themselves as a member of the virtual world, whereas in external interactivity, they are situated outside of the virtual world. In other words, in internal interactivity, the interactor has an avatar inside the virtual world, like in a first-person shooter, whereas in external interactivity, they are observing the world like in a real-time strategy game. The vertical axis differentiates exploratory and ontological interactivity. In exploratory interactivity, the interactor can navigate inside the virtual world, but can't affect it. Conversely, in ontological interactivity, the interactor's decisions can send them into different paths within the virtual world. These 2 axes divide the field of interactivity into 4 quadrants. The first quadrant is internal ontological interactivity. Here, the interactor creates an avatar and interacts using it, which is typical in the majority of video games, such as first-person shooters, platformers, or adventure games. The second quadrant is external ontological interactivity. Now, the interactor observes a simulated world and has godlike controls over it. This is the case, for example, in real-time strategy games or in The Sims. The third quadrant is external exploratory interactivity. In this case, the interactor explores a virtual world from the outside without any agency apart from choosing one of the ready-made paths. For instance, gamebooks or hypertext fiction allow this kind of interactivity. The fourth quadrant is internal exploratory interactivity. Here, the interactor has an avatar but cannot affect anything but just observe. Examples of such virtual worlds are walking simulators or exploratory environments. Although all of these quadrants are suitable for and has been used in interactive storytelling, the first quadrant holds a special interest to us. It would allow us the best possibilities to create a story world. We'd like to offer the interactor an access to the story world by letting them inhabit a character in it. We'd also like to offer the interactor a story world which responds to their actions. Everything else feels limited. In the second quadrant, the interactor is more on an outsider, an observer, whose influence in the story world is indirect. And quadrants 3 and 4 don't allow the interactor to have any influence on the story world other than travel in it. According to Ryan, the original interactivity of oral communication was shut off by written manuscripts and print media. The advent of electronic media reintroduced interactivity into written messages. Electronic media also brought back other features of oral communication, such as real-time exchange, spontaneity of expression, and volatility of inscription. Digital systems are interactive and reactive by nature, and that interactivity actually makes the difference between the so-called old and new media. This is where we will turn next. The forthcoming 3 videos will look into the history of interactive storytelling, as it has tried to find a foothold in literature, theatre, cinema, television, and games. See you there.